Hello everyone, this is just a little message before everyone starts watching my tutorial for this little cardigan. I was sorting all the pieces to add them all together because it takes me a lot of hours to record all the little bits that I do, and then for to edit everything I do a lot of little bits all at once and then put them all together. And I edit out all the bits that's no good. Well, this little one, when I came to checking out all the edits, just in case anyone noticed, I did tell how many stitches I actually picked up from each piece from round the two fronts, the sleeve and the back. And I mustn't have, I would have set my phone on pause while I was doing some other things. And then I think when I went back to record the neckband, I must have pressed that button twice and it never recorded. So it is there how much, picking up the stitches for here and the neck and the back. But I did not tell you how many stitches altogether. So there are 49 stitches altogether. And you knit the first row. After you pick all the stitches up, you knit this one row here. And then there are 4 rows of knit one, purl one for the neckband, and then cast off the stitches loosely. That's all that is missing off. So I thought I would tell you before I start the tutorial. So as you know, it's for this little cardigan, which a lot of my subscribers have been waiting for. Hello everyone. I am going to do a tutorial for it'll be a 2-colour slip stitch pattern on just on around the edge, the bottom edge of a little cardigan, and probably on the sleeves, the edge of the sleeves as well. Be a 16-inch cardigan, and I'm using this is just some white I had from Home Bargains in the UK. It's only £1.29 a ball, and it's quite good wool. This was just a little bit I had left over from Wilko before they closed down. I have quite a lot of I got quite a lot of their wool before they closed down. It's a pity that you can't get it anymore because it was very good wool. So that's what I'm using for the 16-inch one. This is just a little, it's a cake holder I use for, this is for a 200-gram ball, this one, but so I can get 2 little balls into it. And I'm using 3.25, turn them round, 325mm needles for the ribs and 4mm for the body. So I'm going to start off with the white. It's going to be white, the cardigan, with the blue slip stitch pattern round the edge. So I'll leave quite a long piece for sewn up afterwards. I don't like to join little bits on, I like to use what you start with, and I've dropped that. So I've worked out the tension is, move that out the way. The tension is 5.5 stitches to the inch. So you want a 16-inch to measure 18-inch for ease of wear, for putting it on the child. So you'll want the back to measure 9 inches, and I've worked out that's 49 stitches, and you do need an odd number of stitches for this pattern. So I'm going to cast on, I use cable cast on. It's 1, 2, and if anyone doesn't know what cable cast on is, you don't knit through the front of the stitch or the back of the stitch, anything like that. You go through the back of the whole stitch. So that's 2, 3, 4, 5. So that is my 49 stitches, and now I'm going to knit one, purl one, twisted rib. And for anyone that doesn't know how to do a twisted rib, you don't knit through the front of the knit stitch, you knit into the back So you're starting off with a knit, one knit, purl, then into the back of the knit stitch. So you go into the back of the knit stitch like that. And you could do that twisted rib for 6 rows, and I will be back when I get that far. So that is my 6 rows of twisted rib, and I'm going to change to the 4mm needles. These are the 4mm needles now, and I'm going to knit 2 rows with the white. We call this the main colour, and the blue will be the contrast colour. I don't use letters like one's A and one's B because I tend to get mixed up which colour is which. So I'm saying the main colour is white and the blue is a contrast. So I'm going to do 2 rows in the main colour, and they're just ordinary stocking stitch. So I'm just going to knit across this knit row and then knit across the purl row. So I'll be back when I've done that. So I've knitted the 2 rows stocking stitch, 1 row knit and 1 row purl. And I'm going to join in the contrast colour, the blue. And with this pattern, it has an odd number of stitches so that you have the same number of stitches what you start with, the same number what you finish with. And to find out what number of stitches you're going to start with, I have 49 stitches here, and you divide that by 2 in half. But it won't divide evenly because it's an odd number. So you divide 48 in half, which is 24. So the 25th stitch is your centre stitch. So you count from your start: 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 22, 24, 25. That is your centre stitch there. And this pattern is 4 stitches contrast and 1 slip stitch. So that will be a slip stitch, that 25th stitch. So you count 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your slip stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4. That's your slip stitch. And you're left with 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this pattern is going to be knit 4 and slip 1. I'm going to join in you do not cut off your wool because you're only doing 2 rows with each lot of colours. So you just join in leave a little end there that you can sew it in afterwards. And just knit your 4 stitches. 1, I can get it down out the way. That's 2, 3, 4. Now you're going to slip the next stitch from the front. Just slip it onto the needle like that, and you're going to knit the next stitch. But when you knit that next stitch, keep that finger on that stitch there to stop it moving. Knit there, keep your finger on like that and knit that stitch. Don't pull the stitch tight, leave it slack the way you do, because you've passed over a stitch and slipped it, you haven't knitted it. So do another 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Slip your next stitch from the front, then knit your next stitch, So that's 2, 3, 4. Now do that once more. Slip your next stitch from the front. Knit your next 4 stitches. Keep your finger on that stitch to stop it going tight across. It's 1, 2, 3, 4. Now we'll meet you at the end of that row. So that is the first row, and in case any of you clever dicks notice, when I started this row, I think it was here, I actually knit 5 stitches there, so I had to take this row back after I had knitted it, because when I came to the end I only had 3 stitches and should have been 4 when I checked. Yes, I had done 5 stitches here, but that's put right. So we're going to do the purl row now, and it's exactly the same as the knit row, only you are purling the slip stitch instead of knitting it. So we're going to purl 4, and when you slip the stitch on the purl row, slip it from behind, otherwise you'll have a twisted stitch on the other side. So slip it from behind, and then like I showed you before, keep your finger on that last blue stitch you knitted, so you don't pull the stitch tight. 2, 3, 4, and slip from behind. One, 2, 3, 4, and slip from behind, and hold your stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and just carry on across the row like that. Now I'll meet you at the end of that row. So that is the purl row, and as you can see, there's plenty stretch. The stitches aren't tight over the slip stitch. And the next 2 rows we're going to just knit 2 more rows in stocking stitch. And what I do is I twist the wool around and pull it up. Just leave it just a little bit slack. Don't pull it up too tight. And that's so you don't have to cut each colour off as you finish with it. So just knit 2 rows of stocking stitch now. So you're going to do exactly what you did down here. You're going to knit 1 row and purl 1 row, and you're just knitting over all the stitches in white, the slip stitch as well as the blue stitches. So that's 2 rows knitted in the white, and you can see how it's turning out now. The white slip stitch slips over both of those rows, and I'm going to use the blue again. Now again, you don't cut any wool off, you just loop. This is what I do. I just take the ball around and just wrap it around so you loop it up the side. You don't pull the white too tight or the blue too tight. You want to leave a little bit space. And now we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to knit the first 4 stitches. slip your first stitch, keep your finger on the stitch to stop it tightening, moving forward and tightening up. 2, 3, 4, and slip your next stitch. 1, 2, 3, 4, and that is how you work that stitch. You can do, if you want, slip in the middle, but you would have to have an odd number. If you want to go like your 2 slip stitches there and on your next lot, one in the middle, you would have to have either 3 or 5 stitches in the middle there, because you can't do it with an even number like that. But I'm doing it like it's a brick effect. That's what I'm doing at the moment. So I'm going to do those rows, and I'm going to do that for 4 times. So I have 4 rows of the blue with the slip stitch in the middle, and I will come back when I get that far, because I finish it off with a slightly different stitch. So we've now knitted the 1, 2, 3, 4 rows for this size, the pattern rows, and I'm going to do the finishing edge on this pattern, and we're going to change to the blue. You have to twist the yarn to loop it up the side. Pull the white a little bit tight because you don't want it a big loop in between. Now it's a little bit different for this row. We're going to knit the first 3 stitches. 1, 2, 3. We're going to slip the next stitch. Slip that knitways. Knit the next stitch. Slip the next stitch, knit the next 1, 2, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, next 2 stitches. So we are slipping the stitch, that's your slip stitch down there. We are slipping the stitch on either side of the slip stitch, that slip stitch there. So we slipped that one, knitted that one, and slipped that one, and then knitting the 2 stitches in the middle, and again slipping the stitch on either side of the slip stitch that we were doing before. And that's how that row goes. So I'll do it one more time. I've just dropped that. So we're going to slip that stitch, knit the next stitch where the original slip stitch was. Slip your next stitch and knit the next 2 stitches. And that's how that row goes until you get to the end, and you will have 3 stitches left like that to knit, but I'll show you that when I come to it. So we have slipped that stitch, knitted that stitch, slipped that stitch, and we're going to knit the last 3 stitches. And that is the last row that you're going to do slipping any stitches. And the next row is just purl all the way across in the blue, or your contrast yarn, whichever one, whatever you want to call it. It's rather awkward for me because I'm standing up in front of my camera and the needles keep dropping down. So that's all you're doing, you're just purling across that row, and now I'll meet you at the end of that row. So that was my last row in the blue, and now I'm going to just knit with the white, or knit with the main colour, and I'll be cutting off the blue. Leave it long enough end to sew that in afterwards. So the rest is just knitting with your main colour, whether it be white or whatever colour, up to your armholes. So I have knitted, it's hard to see on here, but that's the 4 there, 4.5 inches. And I'm going to do the armholes. So I knit, after the last 2 rows of blue, I knitted 7 rows. And on the 8th row, I'm going to start the decreasing. I'm going to cast off 2 stitches at the start of the next 2 rows. So that's 1, 2, and knit across to the end of the row. And I'll meet you at the end of that row. So that's that row knitted, and I'm going to cast off 2 stitches at the start of the purl row. It's 1, 2, and then I'm just going to purl across the rest of the stitches. Now I'll meet you at the end of that row. So that is the 2 rows where we've cast off the stitches, and now we're going to knit another 2 rows, 1 row knit and 1 row purl, and then I will show you the decreasing. So that is the 2 cast off stitch rows and the 2 stocking stitch rows, and now I'm going to show you how I decrease. My phone clears, it's gone a little bit fuzzy. So we're going to knit the first stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, and then pass that slipped stitch over the knit stitch. And that's how I do my decreasing. So we're going to knit to the last 3 stitches, and I will meet you there. And I'm now at my last 3 stitches, and I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch. And the next row will be purl, and then the row after that will be what I've just done on this row. Knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over, knit 2 the last 3 stitches, knit 2 together, knit 1. And you're going to do that until you have 17 stitches left. And when I get that far, I will show you. We will just be putting those onto a stitch holder. So that is the back finished. I now have 17 stitches on the needle, and I'm going to cut off the white, and I've left the length for to sew down the raglan. And when I finish, that was the last row that I did the decreasing on. But when I do that, I do not knit the purl row, because when you pick up the stitches for the neckband, you knit across that row anyway. So I always finish on the knit row, and I'm going to put these stitches onto a stitch holder. So that's the back finished, and the next part will be one of the fronts. Well, I am back with this is the left front I'm doing, and as I've already shown you how to do the rib and everything on the back, I don't need to do that again. But you have 23 stitches. That's how many stitches I cast on with the 325mm needles, and I knit the 6 rows for the rib, and then knit the 2 rows in white. And I've done the first row to show you where you place the blue. Now on the back I had the same number of blue stitches at both ends, but with this one I want to have 4 blue stitches. This is going to be the front, and this will be up the side where I'll be casting the stitches off for the armholes. So I wanted to have the 4 stitches at the front, so I worked it out where it's 3 blue, slip 1 white, 4 blue, slip 1 white, 4 blue, slip 1 white, 4 blue, slip 1 white, and then you knit the 4 blue. So that was how I placed the stitches for the blue knitted stitches and the white slipped stitch, and then I'll show you the other side. The purl side is just, I think I'll go down a bit. I think that is a little bit too close. So we're going to purl 4 in the blue. I forget where they're at. 2, 3, it's 4. And then you're going to slip the white, and remember slipping it from the back. I don't think it really makes much difference, but that's the way I've always done it. And then keep your finger on the blue until you go over the other stitch to stop it from pulling tight behind the slip stitch. That's another 4 blue, and you're going to slip the white stitch, and knit the next 4. That's 1. I think I let that one loose a bit. 2, 3, 4. And slipping the last white stitch. And knitting the last of the blue stitches. So that is the 2 rows of the pattern. Now the next row we're just going to knit across in the white. So you just take the blue and twist it around the white. And tighten up your last stitch that you knit in the blue. Now we're going to knit 2 rows in the white. Now I'll meet you at the end of that row. So I have now done the left front, done the 1, 2, 3, 4 to match here, 1, 2, 3, 4, the blue with the white slip stitch in the middle. And now I'm going to show you this, what I did here for to finish it off, just slightly different, where we're going to knit 2 in blue. We're changing to the blue for this. We're going to knit 2 in blue. We're going to slip the stitch before the slip stitch, knit the slip stitch and slip the next stitch, and then we're going to knit another 2 in blue and do the same again. Slip that stitch, knit that stitch and slip that stitch, and that's the way you're doing that, the way it'll come out like that. But that's just for one row, and on the second row it's just purl the blue all the way across, so you get a straight edge to finish off the pattern like that. So I will show you that. I have to twist the blue around again. You have to do it twice. You tighten up the white there and just pull the blue a little bit tighter. Leave a little bit, you know, on the side, so we'll just go too tight up the side. So we're going to knit the first 2 in blue. We're going to slip that next stitch before the one that's been slipped all the way down there. And then knit the slip stitch and then slip the next stitch. And then knit another, slip the next stitch, knit the next, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch in blue, slip the next stitch, slip that stitch, knit that stitch, slip the next stitch, knit the next stitch, slip the last stitch, knit the next stitch and knit the next 2 stitches, the last 2 stitches on the row. Now we're going to just purl across the whole row with the blue now. There's no slipping any stitches on this row, you're just purling all the way across. And you just purl in blue all the way to the end of the row. And that is the slip stitches and the blue finish. So the rest is going to be done all in white, and we're going to knit till it measures 4.5 inches up to the armholes, and I will be back then. We have now knit till it measures 4.5 inches, and I'm now going to cast off 2 stitches at the armhole edge. We finished on the wrong side row. 1, 2, and I'm going to knit across that row. So you've knit that row. We're now going to purl the next row and then knit another 2 rows before we start the decreasing. So after you've done the cast off stitches, you knit another 3 rows. So that is the row where you cast off the stitches, and we knit 3 more rows, and now we're going to decrease. So you're going to knit 1, slip 1, knit the next stitch and pass that slip stitch over, then knit to the end of the row. That's a decreasing row, and I'm going to purl 1 more row and then decrease again. So I will purl across this row, so that's a purl row done, and we're going to decrease on this row again. Just knit 1, slip 1, knit 1, pass the slip stitch over, and then knit to the end of the row. And we are going to do that on every alternate row like that. So that's there, you had it there, that's a knit, the purl row, and then we're doing it again on every alternate row until. So we have decreased on alternate rows until there are 11 stitches left, and we're finishing on the right side row. And we're going to turn the work and cast off 4 stitches for the neck. 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm just going to purl to the end of that row. On the next row, we're going to decrease as normal on the armhole edge, and we're going to decrease 1 stitch on the next 3 rows. So we're going to take 1, 2, 3 stitches away from the neck band. So we're going to knit to the last 2 stitches, knit 2 together, and the next row is purl 2 together, and the next row we're going to knit 1, slip 1 and knit 2 together here at the neck edge as well, and pass that slip stitch over. Now we're going to purl the next row, the next 2 stitches, in the next row is cast those 2 stitches off together or knit them together. And then you're going to cut the wool off, leaving it a length or so the seam width. Just pull that through, and there you have the now we need to do the other side exactly the same, but I will show you how to start this off so you want the different stitches at each end when I come to do this one. So you're now doing the right front. This is the left front of the cardigan and this is the right front. And when we started the left front, as I wanted 4 stitches in the blue to come down the front here, because we will lose 1 stitch when you pick up the stitches, so there'll be three stitches, because when you pick up the stitches for the bands you lose one of the stitches all the way down. So I started this off with knit 3 and then slip the stitch and knit 4 until the end where we knit 4 there. Well, when you do this one, it's a mirror image when you do the right side. So instead of starting with knit 3, I started with knit 4 and then slipped the stitch and knit 4, and then we did knit 3 at the end where that'll be sewn up on the seam, the same as the other side. And this one here, you just have to follow the slip stitch. You know, you slip the stitch on either side of the slip stitch for that one. And with this one, I knitted, it was 4.5 inches. For me, it was 7 rows from here up to there. But you're doing the decreasing, the cast off stitches on the opposite end. So you knit the 7 stitches and then knit across. So you finish on the right side where you finished on the left side. You finished on the wrong side when you were doing the left side of the cardigan. But you're going to finish on the right side here, and we're going to cast off 2 stitches. Here. That's 1, 2. You have to bear in mind it's very awkward for me because I'm standing up here doing this, and I'm also looking down a camera. I'm not looking at my hands when I'm doing it, so it is rather awkward. So you're knitting, purling across this row. So that is the 2 stitches cast off. Now when you did this side, after you did those, cast off those 2 stitches, you knit 3 rows before you started doing the decreasing. But as you've already knitted 1 row across here, that's your first row. When you come to do the shaping on here, you're only going to knit 2 rows. So you're going to knit you knit, because that's your first row. And we're going to knit across, that's 1, knit and then purl. So your decreasing is going to be done on the 3rd row and not the 4th row. And then it's every alternate row after that. But when you started it off, it was the same as the other side. You used 325mm needles and you cast on 23 stitches. Knit 6 rows in knit 1, purl 1, rib. I do twisted rib, which is knitting into the back of the knit stitch on every row. And then knitted 2 rows in white, and then you started off the slip stitch, was knit 4, slip 1, knit 4, slip 1, knit 4, slip 1, knit 4, slip 1, knit 3. And that's it. Now I'm going to do the shaping, so I have 2 more rows to knit before I start the actual decreasing. So I've knit the 2 more rows, and I'm onto the decreasing row and I've knit to the last 3 stitches. I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together and knit the last stitch, and the next stitch is going to be purl, the next row, sorry. We're going to purl across this row, and so I purled across that row, and then the next row is going to be a decreasing row again. You're going to knit to the last 3 stitches, knit 2 together, knit 1, and that is decreasing on every alternate row until you have 11 stitches, and you will be finishing on the wrong side row, and I will come back then. I've now decreased until there are 11 stitches, and I finished on the wrong side, and I'm going to cast off 4 stitches for the neck. It's 1, 2, 3, is 4, and knit to the last 3 stitches, and then knit 2 together and knit 1, and the next 3 rows I'm going to knit 2 together at the neck edge, and there'll be 2 stitches left, and then we'll be knitting those 2 together. So we're going to purl across to the last 2 stitches, and I'm going to knit 2 together through the back of the loops like that, so that the stitch is going to slope inwards. So that's 1 stitch decreased, and I'm going to slip the next stitch, knit the next one, pass that slip stitch over, and I'm going to knit 2 together, and knit 1, and I'm going to purl 1, and then purl 2 together through the back of the loop, you have 2 stitches left. I'm going to knit those 2 stitches together, and then I will be cutting that off, and that is the right front done to match the left front. And now sleeves will be next. So I've cast on 29 stitches, and I've knit the 6 rows in twisted rib, and then I've done the 2 rows of the white before I start adding the contrast colour, which is blue, what I'm using. But on the first of these 2 rows I increased one stitch on each. You can see the little marker there where I increased there and there, because I won't be doing any. I normally do it on the 3rd row or the 5th row of the sleeve, but because I'm adding the different colour in, and that I'm going to work until I've finished the blue before I do any more increasing. So I now have 31 stitches here, and I'm going to add the blue in, or your contrast, whatever colour you are doing, I'm doing the blue. So I'm going to knit 5 stitches in blue. I'll get this, find the end of this out of the way. 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm only doing 4 on the other one, but because I'm not slipping a stitch at the start, so I'm knitting 5 here, and I'll be knitting 5 at the end. So I'm going to slip the next stitch and then knit 4, slip the next stitch, and remember to hold your finger over the last stitch that you knitted to keep the wool behind slack, because you don't want it to go tight over the slipped stitch. 2, 3, 4, slipping the next stitch, 2, 3, 4, slip the next stitch, slipping the next stitch, and that's the 5 stitches at the end. And now we're going to purl across the other row, slipping this stitch from behind. So slipping the stitch from behind there like that, and then just carry on across the row doing it like that. So I'm now knitting the next 2 rows in the white, and I just twisted the white around the blue to loop it up the side there. So you just need to knit the next 2 rows, this row, and then purl knit this row and then purl the next row. So that's the 2 rows in white, and now I'm going to do the last 2 rows in the blue. So going to knit 1, slip 1, knit 2 in the blue, and now we're going to, you have the slip stitch there, so we're going to slip 1 stitch either side of that slip stitch and knit the one in the middle. So we're going to slip that stitch, knit where you actually slip the stitch on the other rows, slip the next stitch, then we're going to knit 1, 2, slip the next stitch, knit that stitch, slip the next stitch, and then knit 2 stitches. And that's what we're going to do all the way across the row. You're going to slip the stitch either side of the slip stitch and knit the slip stitch in the middle. So I will be back when I get to the end of that row. So that's how that row is done. And the next row is just knitting all the way across, purling all the way across that row with the blue. So you're just purling over the slip stitches as well as the knit ones. So that's the finish with the blue. So now I'm going to cut the blue off. And we're just going to knit with the white now. I'll just twist that round the blue there. And we're going to increase in this row here. So we're going to knit 1, knit in the front of the stitch, bring a needle through, and then go back into the back of the stitch. So you're knitting in the front and the back to increase. And you're going to knit to your last 3 stitches. And now at my last 3 stitches, so I'm going to knit into the front and into the back of that stitch and knit the last 2 stitches. And that is how you do those increases. So you see the little mark there, you have 2 stitches, and there's the little mark where you increased. The other end, there's your 2 stitches and that little mark where you increase. Even though when you increase at the start, you only knit the first stitch, but when you come to do the increase, you do it in the second stitch, but it comes out after those 2 stitches. That's why you knit 3 stitches at the end, because it comes before the 2 stitches. So that is that increase. And now I'm going to increase on every 6th row until you have 39 stitches, and I will be back then. So I've knit until I have 39 stitches, and I've carried on until it measures 5 inches. For me, that's from the last decrease at 7 rows. And I'm going to cast off 2 stitches at the beginning of the next 2 rows for the armhole shaping. 1, 2. I'm going to knit to the end of that row. And I'm now going to cast off 2 stitches purlwise to the other end of the row. 1, 2. I'm going to purl across this row, and then I'll be knitting 2 more rows in stocking stitch. 1 row knit and 1 row purl. So I've now knit the 2 cast off rows, and I've knitted 2 more rows, and I'm going to decrease on this row. So I'm going to knit 1, slip 1, knit the next stitch and pass that slip stitch over, knit to the last 3 stitches, I've knitted to the last 3 stitches, so I'm going to knit 2 together and knit the last stitch. I'm going to do that on every alternate row until I have 7 stitches left, and I will be back then. I now have 7 stitches left, and I'm going to put those stitches onto a pin. And the last decreasing row, I only decreased on the knit row, but the purl row, I'm just going to put them onto the pin, because when you pick the stitches up for the neck, you knit that row anyway, so I don't knit the purl row after the last decrease. So that's all ready now, just for the bands. I now have all the pieces to the cardigan, so I'm going to pick up the stitches for the neckband. So I'm going to start with the right front. You start with the right front. I have my wool here in my little bowl. So you're going to pick up 1, 2, 3. So I picked up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I think it's 9 stitches. 9. Then I'm going to pick up, I've got these things together, going to pick up the 7 stitches on the sleeve. And pull that tight where that last stitch was very loose. And then we're going to pick up the 17 stitches from the back. One, 2, 3, 4, 16, 17. So that's the 17 stitches off the back, and then we're going to pick the other 7 stitches up from the other sleeve. Is 6 and 7. pull that stitch tight, and then we're going to pick up 9 down the front of the left front. One, 2, is 9 stitches. So that's all the stitches picked up for the neckband, and now we're going to knit the first row all the way across there. I always like to do the neckband before I do the sewing up on the cardigan, because sometimes you get, you know, these stitch here, you get loose stitches around where the ends have been left for sewn. So I'm going to knit across that row. So that's the neckband finished. Just need to sew up the seams, and then I will show you how to do the bands on the front. But I will also, when I start sewing the seams, I will show you how to do those as well. So I have stitched up 1, 2, 3 seams, and I've left 1 seam to show you how I flat stitch my seams. I've started this one up, and you just hold the 2 pieces together in your hand, and you just take from one side to the other like that. One stitch from one side and 1 stitch from the other. And that's how you flat stitch. It's fairly simple. It makes a much neater seam. I'll turn it over and let you see the seams on the other side. That's where I've started. There, so we have a nice neat seam when you flat stitch like that. And the sides are just back stitch. You just keep putting the needle in, keep bringing it back, but I'll show you when I come to do the other side. I'm sewing the cuff and on the sleeve, and we flat stitch that too. Go through 1 stitch on one side and come through on the other. And then we're going to back stitch the sleeve. Need a couple of pins in first. make sure you line up the different colour pattern. I put a pin in there to keep those together. And now we're going to do a back stitch from here, and a back stitch you just go, you're holding the two pieces together, and where you come out you just go in behind the stitch and come out in front of it. There you go, behind the stitch, come out in front. Again, behind the stitch and come out in front. And that is back stitch. And that is how we're going to sew that seam up and down the other side. And then after that I will show you how to put the bands on the cardigan, the front bands. I picked up the stitches for the button band, and now I'm doing the buttonhole band. And for this I'm picking up 3 stitches and missing 1 stitch, so we're missing every 4th stitch. So I'm going to miss that one there and pick up the next one. That's 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to miss the next stitch, miss that stitch and pick up that one. 1, 2, oops, in the wrong hole. 2, 3, I'm missing the next stitch. That's 1, 2, 3, and that's how we're picking the stitches up all the way along. And you're going to pick up 50 stitches all together, and when I come to the buttonhole row I'll show you how to do that. So I have picked up 50 stitches on this side here and knit the first row. So when you knit the first row you get like a garter edge down here that separates the rib from the main part of the cardigan. So that's what I've done here. I picked up the 50 stitches and I've knit that first row, and then I've knit 2 rows in 1 by 1 rib, and I've placed 1, 2, 3, 4 stitch markers where I'm going to place the buttonholes. So I'm going to do that row to make the buttonholes, and then I'll knit 1 more row and then cast off all the stitches. So it's 4 rows all together for the band. So we're going to knit 1, purl 1 rib until we get to the stitch marker. And you knit that stitch where the stitch marker is. Put your wool forward, knit the next 2 stitches together. Keep the wool slack. I put my finger on it there so it doesn't go tight. And then we're going to knit one, purl one to the next stitch marker. So you're at the next stitch marker, so we're going to knit that stitch. Bring your wool forward. Knit 2 stitches together. That's another buttonhole, and we're going to do that with the rest of the buttonholes. So that is all 4 buttonholes done, and I'm going to knit one more row, and then I will be casting off the stitches. So that is the last row knit, and now I'm going to cast off the stitches. And we're just going to use knit one, purl one. That's how we're casting them off, and doing it quite loose. So there's a little bit give in the stitches. So you need to have a little bit give like that when you pull them, but not too much. So you just keep casting the stitches off until they're all off. So that is one little 16-inch cardigan completely finished. And I've opted for blue buttons to match the pattern on the cardigan, which I think sets it off better. So if you'd like to see more anytime, give a thumbs up and subscribe, and I'll show you my next tutorial. So bye for now.